So the way tonight's going to work, we have two very, very special guests. I am so honored that they came tonight. Anne Stuntz is here. She is the president of Historic Vienna. We also have Caroline Gardner, and she is an archaeologist. I knew it, didn't I tell you? I said, I'm not going to be able to say that word. Archeologist.
There we go.
I know that word.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, so she is here tonight. We have a great program. Before we do that, Chief, do you want to say something?
Sure. The same thing the mayor just said, welcome. Thank you all for coming. I think this is a great opportunity to use this building for what it's supposed to be for. Good outreach for everybody and good chance to get together and just talk. And at the end of the evening, there'll be question and answer session. So if you brought a burning question and want to ask the police or the mayor, you'll have an opportunity to do it. From the police standpoint, everything is going pretty well. We're entering into the summer season, which means Taste of Vienna, Viva Vienna, getting ramped up for the fireworks, just all the summer events of the season. So that's what we're busy planning for now. And like Taste of Vienna was just last weekend, so we're starting to get all those things ramped up, and that's what's keeping us busy.
Okay, thank you.
You're
all right, we'll look forward to some questions later on this evening. So first, we just wanted to show everybody a video of the dig at the Freeman House. I know some of you probably went there and saw it, but we'll start with that.
It's just been nagging at us for just many, many years. There's interesting stuff in this area, and we want to know more. We realized that after many years of wishing we had the resources to have an archaeological dig done, at some point in recent years we said, we do have the resources to do this. The Freeman store was built in 1859, and it was here all during the Civil War and then up to now. So you just know there's things underground that are going to be interesting. We did it in stages. We had a company from Williamsburg come and do the ground penetrating radar.
So with ground penetrating radar, basically they run the GPR machine over the site in parallel lines until they can piece together a flat picture of anomalies that are under the ground. There's a best guess on what's been identified under the ground, but you do not know until you dig. You can look at it as sort of a vertical slice through the soil, and it will show you what it detects is a variation in the density of soil layers. So like loose soil up against more compact natural soil deposits, that's detectable to the ground penetrating radar.
Ottery was one of the 3 companies that we took bids from, and they were terrific. What really attracted us to them is their public-facing aspect of archaeology. They really like it that we're on a very public site and that the public will be walking by all the time, and they enjoy that interaction and teaching.
We're working in a town park, and it's not fenced. It's open to the public throughout the period of time that we're digging here. And that actually is a great thing for us. Historic Vienna put up signage basically welcoming members of the public, visitors, to visit the excavations, talk to the archaeologists, and hear about what we're finding.
You read about archaeology, you go to museums, you feel like you know stuff, but you never see it.
We have these 1 meter squares that we've plotted very carefully. We're digging the soil out 1 layer at a time using hand tools.
You know, they really do use very delicate tools, and if need be, they really do use a brush.
And then we keep the materials that are recovered from each layer of soil separate. We run that soil through a sifter that's just a 1/4 inch steel screen. And that catches all of the artifacts that we can't pick up by hand while we're digging. And so from each level of soil, each layer of soil has its own little sort of assemblage of material culture that's kept separate and identified with that layer. And that tells the story of that layer. You know, what happened there and when, and what remains. And some of what we find is not old, but based on what each layer contains, we could usually tell when it went into the ground or what event it's associated with, whether that's historic or modern. These sites are really dynamic, and everything that happens historically leaves its trace. This site has been, continuously occupied before, during, and after the Civil War. Because there's never been an archaeological investigation of this property, it's not known how much of a record that left in the ground. And so there's potential for all sorts of things to be retained under the surface here.
So this curve should continue this way.
It should be about 12 centimeters down.
So the archaeological process, it's really divided into a few different steps. So we dig enough to discover the period of time that the archaeology is associated with, the horizontal distribution and the vertical distribution, how deep does it go, the function of the site, and then maybe most importantly, the integrity of the site. That is to say, sometimes you could have a really rich archaeological site that can tell us a lot about how people lived in the past, and the integrity is compromised so that there's not so much that you can learn from it. And sometimes resources can be almost completely lost to archaeology, So that's been the objective, to dig just enough to answer those questions, and that gives you all the information you need to sort of consider the future of the site. All of our crew are paid professional archaeologists, every one of them. And so they have the training in the background to accomplish that, to excavate the site while preserving all the contextual information and basically maintaining a record. What every archaeologist is told, and understands is that we have one shot at this. Any pit that we excavate, we have that one chance and we have to get it right. And there's always, you can never do it over again, and there's always some loss of information because we can't record absolutely everything. And frequently, when we find cultural features, we don't dig the entirety because there's no reason to. We'll dig a portion of it, and that provides a sample of the artifacts and enough information, and we leave the rest for some archaeologist in the future.
The kinds of things that the archaeologists have found are a lot of 19th century buttons, some parts of ceramic dolls.
We've found in one of these 1 meter squares, 50 or 60 fragments of these tobacco pipes, and they have manufacturer's marks on them so we can date them and identify where they came from. We found a layer of burned oyster shell and glass stemware.
And we all are just imagining a blowout oyster fest.
A party, a historical event that marked something. The objects don't matter even half as much as where we found them. Where we found them is everything.
As they examine all these things in more detail, these artifacts in more detail, we'll know more. There'll be more clues about what they mean. And we probably don't know the half of it. And then at some point when they're finished with that and have written a lengthy report describing what they found, it will all come back to us.
Working with Historic Vienna has been terrific. Most often when we do our work, it's because someone needs a permit to build on a site. Here, there's no plan to, harm any of this after we're done, which is excellent.
You select those 5 spots and you find what you find, and you go, oh, if only we had more than 2 weeks, we could investigate this one or this one. So I think that we'll be able to have them back at some point and find out more. It's just all part of getting a picture of what Vienna looked like. Okay, so thank you for asking us to come talk today, because it's a real treat, and it's my part of tonight is to just do a broad brush of the history of Vienna so that we can see where some of that fits in with the kinds of things we might be finding and learning through this process of archaeology and analysis and research. And so let's see if I can do it. Yes. So I think I have all of 10 minutes. I've never done it that short, but I'm sure it can be done. And so, we can start in this area early. We can go back thousands of years. So think of thousands of years ago to the 1700s, and you have native people and their land. There were prehistoric things found when they did the dig at the courthouse site, which I'll show you later, up at Tyson's. And so I don't know that we'll find any at the Freeman store, but we could. There wouldn't be settlements. There would be more camps. And then we had the mid-1700s, the first European settlers, enslaved Africans, tobacco economy. There's that date on the sign outside of Town Hall that says, I think it says settled in 1754. And I remember when somebody called, they're like, what? And it's on our pottery that we sell too. And basically it's the date of a house I'll show you in a minute, the first European settler. And then once we get to the 19th century, we diversified away from tobacco, which was completely depleting the land. And a lot of people came down from the north to live here. And then giant step for the town was when the railroad came in the mid-19th century. Of course, the Civil War hit us like a ton of bricks and worse. And we had rebuilding, a lot of optimism when we became a town in 1890, the gay 90s. It really was a very big deal. And then I jump a whole lot of years, and another momentous time was the post-World War II rapid population growth. And then for me, the most important thing of the whole overview is the town of Vienna purchased the Freeman store property in 1969. So there's the Freeman store. You know it. I'll just go inside while I've got your attention and can advertise for a moment. Old-fashioned general store and the parlor and stuff upstairs and museum. Bookseller for our fundraiser. We've got a few of our hard workers over there. Thank you. We look after the 1897 little library. And there's on the left is the picture when it was at the Patrick Henry site. And then it was put on a truck and rolled across the road in 1970. And look, it's still got those gorgeous books in it. There's the book, buy it. The indigenous people, these are not things that were found here, although they did find a jasper point up at Tyson's in the 70s when they were doing the dig at the courthouse. But look, the kind of things you could find. This is the site of the first courthouse. Anybody know what that is? Have you been there? Toilet bowl building. So someday I'm going to get a historic marker there that's going to tell you all about it. That little sign there, that little plaque, which you take your life in your hands to look at, is a kind of an odd little DAR plaque that was put up in the 1920s, and it's moved so many times you really don't know where it was originally. This is the first fellow who had a gigantic land grant here and settled his home here. A lot of them didn't build their houses here. He was the first one, and that's the 1754. And this building stood until the 80s at the corner of Frederick and Tapawingo, and then it went down, and there's a bunch of newer buildings there. And then you will drive past that. That's the view from Tapawingo of the cemetery that's still there and the plaque that's there. And then his son-in-law lived at Air Hill, which was over near Air Hill and Park Street. It's not there anymore, but that was another early. Well, in Air Hill, that was, of course, our first name of the town. For at least 100 years, it was called Air Hill. If you ever see my license, you guys, if you see my license, it's Air Hill, and I never drive poorly. Okay. And then Moorfield was another. I really love running through the top key 18th century homes. Moorfield was the home, really quite an amazing story where it belonged to Jeremiah Moore, a real very famous Baptist minister. And it came down, it was dismantled early in this century, unfortunately. but it's got this plaque, and then there's, and then I didn't keep the cemetery. Then getting into the 19th century, this just represents the shift to a completely different kind of farming. Many fewer enslaved, and so many of the people names we know today came down from New York and New Jersey and Pennsylvania. And there's a momentous occasion when the tracks reached Vienna. The depot's later than that, it's from the 60s. But this really puts you on the map to have a train come through. It changes everything. Freeman's store was built there because of the train in 1859, a few years later. And when you look at the little bridge across the way, they're rebuilding that soon, and it was the historic connection to the railroad. Freeman's store was, here we are on the brink of the Civil War. We were a voting place, so people came there before this to vote for Lincoln or not, for example. And we did have the vote for the secession, whether to secede or not from the U.S. And our town voted not to secede because we really were not made up of Southerners by that point. We were a lot of Northerners, and they wouldn't know. But the whole county went to secede, of course. Civil War, look at that. That's June 1861. Right away, there was this very violent and big battle involving that train and hundreds of soldiers, and that's right up the tracks near the community center, and we do reenact that every 50 years or so, which is kind of fun. And that's another view of Air Hill with the tents on it. You saw the pictures that Sean got in the video. It's just, we really were taken over by this point, Camp Vienna. It was a Union outpost, part of the outer ring of defenses of Washington. And there we were. It's not the same picture. My husband says, is that the same picture? No. There are 5 people on the roof. It was a hospital then. And then I like this picture. If you can see the little square at the top in red, that's where the Freeman store is. I just wanted to show that Church Street was the main street for forever. This is from 1874, and you can't read it probably, but at the top it says the main street is called Georgetown Road because that's what you took to go to Georgetown. And then the one that's Maple Avenue is called New Avenue. So that's, we were changing all the time, growing and getting more sophisticated. And here we are, 1890 we were incorporated as a town. And there's Orrin Hine, and he was such a real estate wheeler dealer. He was quite interesting. We've still got the old Pennywise building. It was at Boughton Hall from that era, 1894 about, that it was made. Do you guys know we had a streetcar? It came from Roslyn. It came into right next to the Freeman store, and then headed up to Fairfax City. And here's a picture of how it looked. There were just lots of tracks over there. There were 2 tracks for the electric line, and 1 or 2 for the. And then post-war boom. Look at that chart. Isn't that just stunning? I mean, that must be several 100% change between 1950. It's 2,000 people. 1960. It's 11,000 people. It's incredible, right? 500% in 10 years. Now, some of that, just to be clear, it was, some of that was accessioning a little bit of land too, but it was also just, okay. So on the left, there's a ton, it's 1949 aerial, and look at all the clear farmland. There's still some neighborhoods. You've got the circle again is the Freeman store, and the diagonal lower left to upper right is Maple Avenue. And the main thing when you're looking at aerials of Vienna, look at the sort of the funny S curve of the W&OD. That's how you can really catch where we are. And so look at the one on the right, which is 1962, and how Vienna Woods has really filled in those farms. And then you can't think about this without thinking of homes that cost $13,950 with air conditioning. And you know, anyways, it's just, I love these pictures. And oh, this is my sad picture. So that's as far as I'll go today. But I'm leaving you with the Vienna of today, which is changing yet again, just so dramatically. With this is just one location. This one's on Glen Avenue with the house at the top with its little pile of dirt out front, and then it's down on the second picture, and then there's its replacement home there. So anyway, that's my part. I will hand it over to my colleague here. That's you. And I'll turn myself off so I don't say anything.
All right, is that working? Can everybody hear me? Awesome. All right, so switching over a little bit, all of Anne's history, thank you, Anne, for that wonderful overview of Vienna. All of that to say, there is a lot of history in Vienna. All of that can be preserved and can be studied through archaeology. A little caveat here, I am not on the Ottery team. I am a consultant for Historic Vienna, so I helped contract with Ottery. They will be the ones later on giving a full report of what they have found. My job here tonight is to give you more of the public side of archaeology, what is the point of doing the dig, and hopefully what are we going to learn in the future from all of that. So archaeology, in a general sense, a lot of people think that we do dinosaurs or we are Indiana Jones. Not true. We are a science and art focusing on past peoples, not dinosaurs. Another myth is that we are an elitist group and an elite science focusing on the elite or those in power. Again, yes, you can study those people in power, but a lot of the focus now in archaeology is the focus on daily lives of your ordinary Jones family. Everybody's story is important. Everybody has a story to tell, and that is archaeologists' job to go in there and find the remnants of those daily lives. And last, people are like, oh, I don't like history. It's so boring. That's because you're reading it out of a book and you're not seeing the connection to your life today. Bless you. History and archaeology are a public-facing, collaborative interpretation of a community's stories, and the real power comes when those stories have not been told yet. Especially underrepresented groups, you think of enslaved people, you think of women, you think of children. People writing history don't often record those stories. You only get the stories of those in power, and you don't know what the children were doing every day because, quote unquote, it didn't matter. It did matter. Archaeologists can go through, they can look through all the things that those people left behind, and they can start to draw out those stories. So I won't go through this because Anne already covered it really well. The first thing that archaeologists do is that we do our homework. You never, ever, ever put shovel to the ground without doing your homework first. So in this case, we went through, or Ottery went through, Anne went through, I went through the site history of the store. You really have to know where you are in time, when you are in time, who was there, what kinds of things are you looking for when you do put that shovel to the ground. And I will bring it on, so 1859, Abram and Susan Lydecker build the house and the store next to the railroad that Anne talked about, used by both Union and Confederate troops during the Civil War. And then it carries us all the way through the 20th century until today, when the site got listed as very significant on the National Register of Historic Places. So as I said, we always do our research before we even look anywhere. I happen to be a historical archaeologist. There are tons of different types of archaeologists, underwater, Egyptian, all over the world. Historical is a broad term that means you combine written records with what you find in the ground. Not every culture has written records. They preserve their own history through other means. Historical archaeology focuses on those with those records. So anything from, you can say even the Mayans had a written record. They had a calendar. It was written down. Specifically with colonial sites, post-colonial sites, you're looking at diaries, you're looking at letters, oral histories, photographs, even art sometimes can help you. If you have a mystery artifact and you look at a painting and you say, hey, that jug that they're holding looks like the piece that I found in the ground. Oh my gosh, it's a jug, and they used it to make milk. Whatever it is. You're using all these different things. You're using art, you're using science, you're using living people, and you're using past people to try to figure out this story. And that's what we are. We're storytellers. So in this case, we are looking at, on the bottom here, a picture of the Freeman store. So the red circles that you see are things that we might find. And do I have a pointer on this? I might. Do I? No. Do I? Okay. I bet it's there, but I just don't see it. That's okay. So this is the modern store on the top. You'll notice in the far left of the picture, there is a barn. That barn no longer exists. There is also in the middle red circle is the addition to the house, which again, no longer exists. We only have, 5 bays instead of 7. And then down in the corner there is a horse standing next to a couple of fence posts. We don't have those anymore, but when you dig a garden post, when you dig a fence post, whatever it is, you're disturbing the soil. And archaeologists 1,000 years from now will be able to see that discoloration in the soil and say they had a fence post here. A lot of different things, but again, we're combining art, we're combining science, we're combining historical research to try to figure out what this story was. So after you do the homework, after you go through all those records, we happen to do GPR. This is the answer to how do you know where to dig. If you have limited time, if you have limited funds and limited people, you want to know where you can concentrate your efforts, right? So you're not wasting time. This is Bob Chartrand from Williamsburg. He came up and did a ground penetrating radar survey for us. That's the lawnmower thing that he's pushing around. It comes up with basically a graph. Looks kind of like a sonogram or like a heart monitor. You can see where areas are reflecting differently than the natural soil. And you say, okay, that's what we call an anomaly. I don't really know what it is, but it's different. So that's what we go and we do ground truthing. It's a different term for saying, get out your shovels, start digging. We concentrate on the things that look cultural, not natural. So, okay, we can probably tell that this is a tree root, we're not gonna dig there. But this thing has a really weird straight shape. Nature doesn't work in straight lines, humans do. So let's dig over there. So Bob's map gave us a hint of where to concentrate. The step 3 was the actual excavation. Now this is where Ottery came in. A little behind the scenes, we solicited bids from a bunch of different groups, but Ottery came out on the top. They really know what they're doing. They've gone on different excavations, especially for public-facing excavations, public-facing sites, museums, things like that. That's really what drew us to them. This is a very public-facing site. Obviously, it's in the middle of the town square. There's going to be people coming up. We wanted somebody who knew how to relate to the public and to tell those stories. So right under that, you'll see a few archaeology terms. Shovel test pits are literally just that. You're digging small holes with your shovels. It's kind of like playing the game Battleship, where you go, oh, a lot of these have pieces of artifacts, and over here, not so much, so we're going to concentrate in this area. Units are the bigger holes, and then within that, if you remember that first picture, the woman with her head in the ground and scraping, she's going through every single layer of soil, documenting each one. So the analogy that we always give as archaeologists is think of a layer cake, like a birthday cake. You got your icing on the top, you got a chocolate layer, you got a vanilla layer, maybe some more icing, chocolate, vanilla, and so on. That's what happens in nature. That's what happens when humans come along. You have to know where you are in that layer cake to know where you are in time. The last thing that I'm really going to hammer home is the word provenience. That is not a misspelling. It is provenience, not provenance. In the art history world, you'll say provenance. That's the chain of title for a piece of art. So it's the person who made it, the person they sold it to. Maybe that person died and they gifted it to their son or daughter, and then they passed it on. That's the provenance. Provenience in archaeology is the power of place. It's just like a realtor, location, location, location. You heard Matt in the video talk about, well, the objects are important, but where we found them is the important thing. That is what archaeologists care about. You need both the context, where you are in the ground, what that object is next to, which layer of that layer cake you're in, and the object itself. It does no good to just have the object. Just going to tell you it now. If somebody goes to and says, let me dig in your backyard and maybe we'll find a historic bottle or maybe we'll find this, please say no. What they're doing is taking the object and maybe you'll have a little story about it. Maybe you can say, okay, this is a bottle with a maker's mark or a ceramic with a maker's mark, so I know it was by this person in this time period. But you've lost the entire rest of that story. How far away from the house was it? How deep in the ground? Was that ceramic next to a whole bunch of other ceramics and maybe the remains of a fire pit? That's a very different story than, oh, I just found this in a pile of ceramics and bottles and glass and who knows what else. In that story, that's just people dumping their trash. In the first story, it's people maybe cooking around a fireplace. So you need both the context, what it's around, where it is in the ground, and the object itself. So all of that to say, there's a lot of scientific explanation of what we did. This is the important bit at the end of the day. I had a moment when I was visiting the site. Jay, the excavator on the right-hand side there, was talking to this group of people, and this little girl comes up, and Jay goes, come here. She just kind of backed away. He goes, no, it's okay, come here, hold out your hand. So she held out her hand, and he put this artifact in her hand, and he goes, do you know what that is? She goes, no. He goes, that is a piece of a doll, and a little girl about 150 years ago, just like you, was playing with this doll. And that is the power of public archaeology. It's connecting the community of itself through science, through the history that we know of as scientists, but also bringing it out, telling those stories, and really making that connection between past and present. So next steps, we are still waiting on the final report from Ottery. So all of the things that they found, like the oyster shells that you heard about, all of that will be written up in a scientific report, and we'll be able to translate that and translate the objects that they recovered into hopefully an exhibit, and then care for these objects long term with their storage and safety to be able to tell more stories in the future. So Anne and I both wanted to open it up to questions. Thank you all again for having us here tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a microphone if I can.
What are we looking at there? What are we looking at there?
Turn this back on again. So this is a fragment of a pipe. So if you think it's kind of gross because it's the cigarettes of the 20th century, but we don't think about that. If you have like a long stem that you're blowing through, and then you have the bowl where the tobacco sat. So that is the pipe bowl where all of the, at the end of the pipe.
All right, anyone else have a question?
Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
For either or both Anne or Caroline. So the town green where you did the digging, was that entire lot part, was it the Lydecker, originally Lydecker store? Was that all owned by Freeman or Lydecker?
They had about 7 acres that they bought from Peter Hendrick, who's the fellow who named us Vienna. And it was probably before that it was tobacco farming. Then it was, they bought it in the mid-50s. So before that, it was probably part of some other bigger farm. So, yeah, I mean, the only part that's sort of formally with, there's the town green side that before the town was smart enough to turn that into the town green, it was just, who remembers it? It was just a shopping area. It was, a restaurant. It was a rental place. And so the town just, what brilliance that was to say, we just need more of this gorgeousness in the middle of town. So anyway, so that was, who knows what's left there to ever find, because when they were landscaping it, they replaced a lot of the soil with structural soil, and it's just got so much irrigation. There's so much on the I think of it as the town green side, which is the bathrooms and the stage and the fountains. And then on the Freeman store side, that hasn't been disturbed much, except to be fair, the archaeologist said, boy, you've had bulldozers here. This ground has been, probably when it was renovated in the 70s, it opened, the town got at least one grant as a bicentennial project, and we created Historic Vienna in 76, and then it opened to the public in 77, and it was such a big deal. But you can just imagine it too, and they discovered that. It was really clear there was a lot of later 20th century sort of mess and rubble and construction and compacted. But yeah, underneath, what have we all been doing there over the 160 some years? Not much, so hopefully there's more.
That's great.
Okay. Question? Oh, yes.
No, I just can't get the mic.
Oh, okay.
Oh, go ahead.
You mentioned the community center being a place where the Battle of Vienna occurred.
Yeah.
Was there any care taken when the community center was renovated or built to kind of figure out what was under there, or was that just kind of?
I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
That was in the 60s, and weirdly, it felt like yesterday. Everybody always found bullets. Everybody always found bits of uniforms. Growing up around here, the Civil War was like yesterday. And I mean, everywhere, it was just, so I suspect there was a lot of relic hunting, because I mean, it's really fun to metal detect. And not that you would ever do it any place that wasn't your own, if even there. So yeah, I don't think we've been very attuned to it. When Moorfield was dismantled in 2004, that being an 18th century house, the Fairfax Archeology did send some people out to do kind of a quick and dirty search, and they found a number of artifacts. Yeah.
Okay, we have another question.
Yeah, thank you very much for this overview, but I feel like I'm a little bit suspenseful here. Are there any major, one or two surprises that you can tell us about now, or do we have to wait for the final report?
I would if I could.
Oh, okay.
We don't know because Audrey hasn't finished the report yet. So we are very much on pins and needles as well, waiting for what the finds are. But I think the biggest thing was the oyster shells and the broken glass. That the theory right now, again, we don't know yet if that's correct, but the theory is that it was the remnants of some big clam bake or oyster bake. So yeah, we're waiting to see if we can find out more about that.
There wasn't, I would say, we never saw any big, amazing, like, we have an Egyptologist in the room. You know, you pull out these gorgeous things from tombs. We didn't get anything bigger than that,
Yeah.
I don't think.
Yeah.
Except for some bricks. But of course, you would have some evidence of some foundations because there were other buildings around.
Yeah, that's the thing with archaeology is we always get, hey, did you find gold? Hey, what did you find? A, we always find something. It may not be what we're looking for, but we always find something. And B, it's mostly trash. We are the raccoons of the scientific world. We will go through your trash. It's all broken bits, but like my specialty is historic ceramics. You give me a piece that it's the size of a quarter, and obviously depending upon what it is, but I can usually tell you the time period, who made it, how it was made, where it was made, and what it was used for, all from the size of a quarter. So that's usually what we get. I think the advertisement for this event had pictures of broken window glass and little tiny bits everywhere. That's what most of this is, but we can still get a story out of it.
Right. And we've already had a conversation that perhaps we will, when this all comes together, we'll have another event.
Yeah.
This is kind of a teaser for everybody. So we're hoping we'll have a bigger, maybe just a different story.
Yeah.
A bigger story. And maybe a clam bake or something. I mean, Vienna likes to celebrate, right? I know I do. So, we might have to simulate it or something. Okay, any other questions? Okay. Oh, here we go.
Where is the tent encampment that was in the photo?
So go to Park Street from here, turn west or north or left, and go toward Air Hill. There's a T intersection of Park and Air Hill, and that house was just beyond that, sort of across the street from Susan Stillman's house, maybe a couple houses in. And I don't know if anybody here knew the Travis family, but those kids played in the ruins of Air Hill when they were little. And so we can say pretty well where it was. And sadly, I mean, this was a heartbreaker. We didn't have the resources to do any kind of archaeological. We didn't know that we didn't have the resources and that we should make the resources. So there was no archaeological work done at all for this 1760s house that it went down a long time ago, but all there was a 1950s house. And then now they scooped up most of the basement, which went off somewhere else now. And it's too bad, but you can't you can't analyze it everywhere. It's frustrating.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Did the early residents of the Freeman store dig a water well, or did they get their water out of the creek?
Well, they would have had a well.
That's what I thought. And I heard, I'd read before that a lot of times when the wells dried up, people would use that as a garbage dump in the house. They take their broken pottery, they take their stuff and just throw it in there and filled up. So that would have been a great find if they had one.
Yeah, we don't have any evidence of that. It's possible, but we don't know. That has happened at other sites, but then again, some wells are just filled in with dirt, so we just don't know.
Cool.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Story of Vienna. What is the most interesting thing you know about Vienna that we don't know?
Oh.
Or that most people in Vienna should know?
Right, that's a good question.
Well, one of my favorites, but I won't be able to flesh it out because I can't remember it very well, but there's a most adorable story about an escaped goose in the 1870s. I mean, I really think a lot of attention needs to be drawn to this. I'll work on that one. I'm going to fail tonight. I'm going to fail tonight.
Good question.
Speaking of cheeses.
Has there ever been a dig at the Civil War fortification at the Vienna American Legion post? I understand there's a mystery about whether that was a Confederate or Union post, what unit was there. I was curious if there's ever been an investigation of that one.
I don't think they have. That would be another great possibility for some GPR. It's a later fort. I'm sure it was Union. Yeah, it's got that. You can read that marker that's right there. It's a neat piece of the outer defenses of Washington. It would be wonderful to do something there because I think that gets a lot of wear and tear, and it would benefit from something a little more thoughtful, some thoughtful analysis. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else? You all are great. You had fantastic questions.
Great audience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's give Anne and Caroline a round of applause.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we really appreciate you being here tonight. Are you going to stay for the rest? Okay, good, because I want to talk to you afterwards. Okay. Oh, and we can keep this. So now, if there's any questions for the chief or for me, this is the time you all can ask us questions about anything going on in Vienna.
In general, anything comes to mind. You got a ticket on your way here.
Right. What you want the next, I don't have a topic for the next one, so if you have an idea, I will listen to it and take that into account. Bye-bye. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks.
People of all ages coming. I love that.
I know, that's
love
great.
that. There we go.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for this opportunity. I have Ring video doorbell, and I keep getting all these alerts. People have videos of people trying to break into cars at night, and it seems to be intensifying or scouting around their neighborhood. What can we do about that? I mean, the Ring videos aren't clear enough to really identify anybody. I don't know if we can track cars coming into the neighborhood, but is it just I'm getting all these alerts, or have you noticed that in general there seems to be more activity at night?
Sure. I don't know if there's been an increase. I can tell you it really has never gone away. We always have some level of activity with that, with people breaking into cars. And our number one, and Juan is our community services officer. In Vienna Voice, you'll see a word from Juan each quarter. He gives prevention tips. And the number one prevention tip is lock your car. Because we do not have people breaking out windows. We do not have people smashing car windshields out to get things out of cars. We have people opening car doors and taking things. So lock your windows. If you do, however, see a Ring video, because we all have them, whether it's Ring, Blink, whatever. If you see a video and you can see, you can identify someone, you can identify a license plate, you can identify a vehicle, give us a call, because you never know what it's going to connect up to. Might not even be your neighborhood. It might have been 3 streets over. Maybe we did have a rash that night of cars getting broken into. But your Blink, Ring, whatever video could help us with that. I know when we have a significant event in town, detectives will come out and go door to door, because so many people have those devices now. We will go door to door saying, have you checked it? Did you capture anything? And a lot of times we get calls like 3, 4, or 5 days later, like, hey, I just looked at this and this looks really weird. So it is valuable. If you see it, if you think it's of value, absolutely give us a call. But more importantly, at the end of the day, it really is locking your doors, because these crimes are committed it's a very easy crime to commit for a younger generation. They can drive into the area, park their car, they can just circle around, walk through a few neighborhoods, pulling on car doors, get money, cash, computers, and occasionally they will steal a car too, because a lot of people have the bad habit of leaving their key fob in their car also. So that's our number one community service speech on it.
Just to follow up, there is an app, the Neighbors app. That one, when we need a video of a certain block in the town, we can send an alert to the people that are subscribed in that block, and you could submit the video. It'll let you know that we need the videos around a certain time, and you can share it with us if you want to. And like the chief said, we normally get emails or phone calls, and I get those videos and I send them to the detectives. And even if it's a little blurry, you still get the time, you get, direction of travel, you get how many people were in the car, what's the color of the vehicle, a lot of helpful information, even if you can't really make out the details. So any little bit could help. So just send it and we'll decide if it's helpful or not. Okay?
Thanks, Juan.
Okay, great. Yes.
So I see a lot more. I see more people driving in the parking lot at Giant and CVS. I know that's private property, but driving diagonally across and cutting across in a lot of what I would consider dangerous or reckless. Is that anything that you're aware of? I don't know whether or not there have been accidents or injuries there, but it does look like a recipe for disaster. I mean, I would say every time I'm there, I see somebody poke through either too aggressively or, the diagonal driving is, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Not good, not good for pedestrians.
You hit the nail on the head when you opened up. It is private property. So most traffic codes don't apply in that parking lot. We can't go in and say, hey, you cut across an aisle, you were going up and a down aisle. We can't enforce that. There is reckless driving because they are open to the public. If we get someone's behavior who is so egregious in that type of situation, going way too fast, way too endangering, we can go in and we can do reckless driving in the parking lot. That's really all we can do with it. We really can't enforce cutting across aisles. I know exactly what you mean. It's like, come on, there's lanes here. It makes sense. But we can't enforce the lane issues with it. But if you see someone reckless, again, that's one of the things like Juan always pushes out too. Just call us. We'll come and look at it because there's also the chance the driver's intoxicated, it's someone that shouldn't even be in a car, things like that. So we can certainly come and address it even if we can't write a ticket for it.
While we're on the topic of the Giant shopping center, thanks for taking us there. And sorry about driving across the parking lot. I went to Giant the other day in CVS, and I was solicited 5 times just going from my car to CVS to Giant. And I just wondered, maybe it's a topic for you, Mayor, what your thoughts are about solicitation in this town. It seems to be getting worse, and I worry about these adults who have these little kids who seem to be using them like props. And
Sure.
I wonder what we should do about
the
that.
amazing violin player that plays in the middle of the parking lot.
Yeah. Well, he's pretty good, actually. But
No, it's a little bit back to the private property issue. They're on private property. We can't come in and just charge them with soliciting because we really don't have jurisdiction to walk in there. We do work with the property management, the store owners, because at the end of the day, it kind of comes down to that. If the management at Giant does not want that person there and that person's creating enough of a hassle, they can ask that person to leave. And if the person doesn't leave, then that becomes our problem. But we do have that throughout town, usually private property. Captain Taylor is our operations commander, so he oversees patrol. So he's well aware. I think we regulate folks on streets very well, sidewalks, public property. We regulate that pretty well. But we do have some concerns with the private property, people going through the parking lots, just working their way in and out. If you experience that, one of two, if they're overly aggressive, call us. If it's a nuisance, I would go back to the store, or if you're going into a store, and speak to the manager and say, I'm getting harassed when I come here, try to come to Giant. Maybe I'll go to Giant in Oakton if I keep getting harassed coming into your parking lot.
it's also the empathy factor. It's how can we help these people? These are able-bodied men mostly. Is there any way of, I mean, this town is loaded with jobs that are available.
Yes. Fairfax County, I'm sorry, I don't mean to. Fairfax County has one of the most vibrant, vibrant civil social services functions going. These folks aren't doing that because they can't get anything else. There are services available. We routinely take people up to the homeless shelter in the winter, up to the homeless shelter in the summer. Some of the folks call us to go get rides. There are services available. And that's really the goal, is if we can steer them to those services and get them to take advantage of those services. Sometimes that process is more cumbersome than they want to go through, so that's how they end up.
I mean, we do have nonprofits, of course, in
Sure.
Vienna. We have CHO, Committee for Helping Others. I don't know if you ever refer them to that. That might not be, it depends on what,
Right.
if they have homes and so on.
Right.
So it kind of depends on what the issue is. But
It really is. One of my, not favorite stories, but one of the stories that really drives home the point is in the summertime we get a significant uptick a little bit in homeless population. And we talk, a couple of years ago we made some outreach efforts and went one-on-one with them. Who are you? Where are you from? What are you doing? How can we help? And it's honestly because Vienna is such a caring community. That's why they're here. They know if they're on Church Street, someone's going to hand them a $20 bill. They know that, and that's true, and that speaks volumes for the community. We actually had one gentleman who was explaining he's from D.C. and homeless. He came here for a 2-week vacation to Vienna. So he was in Vienna homeless for 2 weeks as his vacation. So, there's all kinds of different stories for it. And with the way Tyson's is growing, I think that's going to be an issue we have to keep more and more hands-on and make sure we're all squared away on how we're going to handle it, how we're going to keep track of it, and how we're going to respond to it.
yeah, but I do always tell people to call.
I know, they do.
I mean, and I think you appreciate that
Yeah.
because you want to know, and I think a lot of times our police officers know different people in the community that are here often.
Sure.
And so you kind of have a.
We like to keep track of them because when you say someone's a giant playing the violin or someone's a giant with their kid,
Right.
I think I could walk into a roll call and talk to Tom and they'll know that person's name and they'll know that person's story, and I want to keep it that way. I want to make sure even if they're here homeless, soliciting, that we can keep track of them and we know they're here and what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. Doug?
So as far as, the new police department looks great. As far as staffing, or do you feel the police department's 100% staffed at this point, or do you see the need to increase the officer count?
No, I can tell you, thanks to the efforts of the mayor, Councilmember Springsteen, we're currently down 1, and that's unheard of in this area. We have full staffing. Squads are full. We have the number of people we need. We have them deployed in the areas we need them to do. We're a very young police department because of that, because we have had a lot of new hires over the last few years. But that's really going to pay off in the future for this department. It's a great group of young officers who are aggressive out there, who are part of the community. And I know just being down, I've been here 10 years and we're always down 1 officer. So it's really comforting to me to know we're back to where we should be and we can get that one filled, and then we just work with normal attrition. So I think it's kind of a success story for us that we've been able to staff the way we have.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. That was good. I just want to let everybody know, so next door to us is we call it the Annex. It's a former Faith Baptist Church property that the town bought. And so I don't know how many of you took the questionnaire, but there was a questionnaire that went out and said, what would you like to see happen at that property? But if you didn't answer the questionnaire, or even if you did, there's going to be 2 more community events, and they're going to be at the community center this time. One is tomorrow night, and the other one is Saturday, and they'll be out there at the farmers market too. So if y'all want to go and just learn about it or give your input, I really want this to be a community effort. I know Councilmember Springsteen feels the same way. We want to hear from the residents, what is it that maybe is missing in Vienna that we could have there that is I would like to see it for all ages, for accessible to everybody.
What are some of the most popular things that people are coming up with for that?
I'm glad you asked that. So we had about 1,200 responses, and aquatics and fitness were the top 2. Yeah. And so we're hopefully going to explore that a little further because that could mean a fee system. So we'll have to go down that road and look at that. Yeah. But so far, those are emerging as the top two. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions about that or anything else? Yes.
Really quick, are there any plans for the property behind the Rexall Drug shopping strip, the former mayor's house? Am I remembering that right?
Thank you very much.
Lot?
Right. So not yet. The answer is not yet, but we are, of course, going to have plans for that property. Right now, our Parks and Rec department is doing a park master plan. So what that means is they're looking at all the different properties that the town owns and looking at, where are our parks? Where is there a need for whatever, a playground or a baseball field, or, well, we're not putting a baseball field there, but whatever it happens to be. And so that the entire town is, has its needs met and stuff. So we're going to wait for that. That will come out, I believe, in December or maybe January of 2024. And then we'll start looking at those properties too. Yeah. Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay, there are cookies. There are some water over there. I want to thank Karen Thayer, our communications director, and Sean Metzer, and Shelley Kozlowski, deputy town manager. Boy, I just gave you another job.
Some days you'd think she was.
She's just there for me, I tell you what. Deputy town clerk for helping put this together, and I hope I'm not missing anyone, but thank you. And I'm so sorry. Courtney, thank you for filming, and of course our wonderful police department, and the chief is always good to work with me. So thank you, good night.
Yep.
And
Thank you all.
Please come to the next one.
Yep.
Chief, did you want to say anything?
No, you're good, thank you.
Okay, that was good.
Nice turnout. Very nice.
Okay.